Ooh, nice glove.
Why, thank you.
All right, we are live.
Oh, we're good?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the CG Cookie live stream. We do these every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Central Time. And as we start these, we usually like to ask you guys to put where you're watching from, and we'll do a shout out before we get started. And as I do kind of my final prep, the live stream for today is I finally got my Cintiq, and I haven't really done a true drawing yet on it. I've done some experimenting with painting, but I've never done like a drawing. So this will be my first time, and I wanted to share it with you guys, especially for those of you that have been with CG Cookie for a long time and watching these live streams. This is definitely something that I have wanted for quite a while, and hopefully I will enjoy working on it and will make more of a traditional approach to digital in my newer pieces. So, all right, if you want to put where you're watching from, Joe will do the shout outs right now, and we will get started in about 3 minutes.
All right. Andrew McKinney says, Pennsylvania greetings. Andrea says, hi from Denmark. Fabian says, hello from the Netherlands. Beatrice says, hi from Belgium. Anna says, greetings from Austria. Issa Spark says, hello from Germany. Now I was an hour too early because I forgot that we had daylight savings times on the last weekend. Daylight savings time sounds funny. Is it right in English? Hope you had a nice Easter holidays. Thank you for the wishes. And yeah, daylight savings time does sound a bit weird. Now that I think about it.
Yeah.
Selena says hi from Sweden. And Matt says, I welcome you all to Sweden. Whoa, we just got a bunch. Where'd you go? Tim. He just disappeared. Damn! No! I'll keep reading out anyway. Neil says, yo from Canada. Jamil says, hey guys. Tito says, no, bae, I'm from Belgium, so it's so small, there is only room for me, so hi from Belgium. Valor says, hi guys from Russia. Christine says, good evening from Sweden. Nick Neck says, hey from Baltimore. And Louise Hampson says, evening from England, where I've just discovered it's been raining too hard recently to wear my new favorite trainers whilst walking, whilst walking the dog. Now my feet are cold. Mel says, hoi from Germany. Guten Tag, as they say. Brushing up on my German. Alex says, good evening from Ukraine. And that's all that's been updated for now. Tim, where'd you go? Oh, there you are. You disappeared for a second. Can you not hear me? Tim!
1 second.
All right.
All right, let me leave and come back.
Oh, okay. Meanwhile, I'll entertain everybody.
All right, we're good.
All right, cool. I did a little jig for everyone.
If I have direct connect, I might as well use it.
Oh, are you not directly connected?
I like Wi-Fi.
Whoops. All right, we did all shoutouts.
Okay. I think I am good to go. Yeah, I can go. In 1 second. All right. Officially, hi everyone. Welcome to the CG Cookie live stream. We do these every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Central Time, and usually we post a topic about an hour, 2 hours beforehand. And if you're new to these live streams, you can feel free to ask any question, even if it's not regarding what I am currently working on. And today we're going to be doing a sketch on the Cintiq. And this is the first time I've properly owned a Cintiq, because my last one that I had, it was the 13 HD Cintiq, and it kind of broke on me within 3 months, and I've always been a little iffy about them ever since. But I'm a very forgiving person, so I'm going to give it a go again with this Cintiq. And this is the 22-inch touch, and I did do a few test paintings on it, but I haven't done a full drawing. So I thought, what better way than to share with you guys my first drawing and have it be kind of a two birds with one stone kind of a deal, where I'm going to be drawing the contest banner announcement for tomorrow. So I'm pretty excited about this. Feel free to ask any questions. And before we get started, I'm just going to say the first impressions that I had with it were very good. The thing with the stand I actually really like. Let me see if I can get a better view. Let me pull this over. We actually have an overcast day for once on a live stream. All right. So the first thing I noticed was these wings on the back. They're very specific that you do not lift it by the wings, that you only use it for adjustment. But I was so surprised that I really enjoyed the adjustment tabs and how easy they are to use, because I even bought an arm that I was going to attach this to, only to find out I may not even need it because of how much I actually enjoy just using this. And this is pretty comfortable. I find myself not really turning it as much as I thought I would. And if anything, I turn the canvas with the touch feature. So that's something I really liked. I did get a screen protector. I'll lift it just a little bit. You can probably barely even see it. But this is something that one of my friends really, really recommended to me, because you can ruin your screen on your Cintiq if you're pressing too hard, and if you drop something or for whatever reason you scratch it. I mean, that will be forever scratched. But if you get this screen protector, which I thought would have been a cheaper investment, but it's actually, the one I got was around 30, and I couldn't find one, at least with the time that I was trying to buy the Cintiq, that was anything less than that. So I highly do recommend it though, because I can already tell just on my initial paintings that I've done that I do have some smudge and scratch marks, and those will just be on the protector. So if it ever gets really bad, I can just peel this off and put a new one on. I also got one of those fancy 2-finger gloves, because I am constantly rubbing my hand on the screen. I'm not one of those artists that like use their whole elbow and only have the pencil touch the paper. So I'm going to be seeing if this is something that I think is worth the investment or not. And this one was actually really cheap. So if this is something that interests you, this is actually a really cheap investment. Okay, and then the last thing I noticed that I really like is there's a scroll touch bar on the back. And if you can see, I'm zooming in and out, but it's really easy to use, and you can change what it does. You can do the brush size, the layers, the rotate, or auto zoom. And this feature has actually been really nice. And as much as I want to get more acquainted with using my left hand and right hand, I do find myself still using the keyboard. And I don't think that's a bad thing, but eventually I would like to completely migrate my hand over to here and use the Cintiq to its full capacity. All right, so I think that's kind of the first broad impressions that I have with the Cintiq. Why don't we go ahead? I'm going to switch over and we're going to start doing our drawing. And like I said, if you have any questions, even if it doesn't pertain to specifically like Cintiq questions, if you have any questions about art or getting a job in the industry, definitely post them on the side. I know last week we were a little filled because we were doing the user critique stream. And on that one, I just kind of ramble for about an hour, 40 minutes, where this one, I would rather have it be more open. Oops.
Uh-oh. Sorry, Chris. He was like, what?
Oh, geez. Hold on. Let me fix that really quick. And then we will get started. Oh, this is the last week you can sign up for the workshop. I believe there are 2 spots left. and that starts on Sunday. Close that. And pretty much what our workshops are is we take a pretty in-depth individual look with you, and we work with you for 5 weeks, and we try to improve whatever skill set you have to the next level. Where was the last one? And I'm always excited to do the workshops, but it's also a lot of work. And I think during those weeks while I'm doing the workshop, I'll probably do more fun, casual live streams rather than really overbearing ones. Ah, that's where the wrong one is. Okay. Okay. Double checking. Right. So I'm going to switch over to the Photoshop file on here, and then we will officially get started. All right, so on my monitor here, I'm going to move over by brush menu. The one thing I have noticed with the Cintiq that I'm not, either I'm just too new with it or I don't know how to edit it, is I cannot get the menu and the tools on Photoshop to mirror on my computer because I don't want everything mirrored. I just want the tools. So that's something that every time I want to switch over to using my Cintiq, I have to actually physically move the layer box. But I think that's a very small gripe for something that I probably could figure out. And this was the banner for the last contest. So essentially, I'm using the same size, and I have to work with a similar kind of setup where I have to have words on one side, primarily words on one side, and the picture on the other. So for this one, I'm going to have our subject matter more on this side, and then the words on the other side. Now, the subject matter that I'm going to be working with today.
Someone else just joined.
Oh, probably because I just deleted it, though.
Oh, okay.
Probably, or what was I saying? Oh, I am using this kind of crazy chaotic brush because I think not only do I want to work on a Cintiq for the first time, but I want to show you guys how to experiment with new brushes and kind of leaving the comfort zone. So with a Cintiq, when I had my 13 HD Cintiq, I always remembered I felt so much more comfortable and confident with my work. And I think a part of it was I'm looking directly at what I'm drawing, and having that 1-to-1 ratio, I think, helped me mentally. So I'm hoping with this one, I can experiment with more shape language and then not worry so much about the details or worry about there being a specific pattern or system that I have to work with. And for the subject matter, and I know a lot of you have been asking about what is the new contest going to be, what is it going to be centralized around. And we wanted, or at least I wanted to do something more fun. I wanted to do something that we haven't done before. I feel like we kind of stick in the same realm of it being usually like an animated character. Oh, you know what? Why don't I make this smaller so we can really zoom in on just that. So I want to do something a bit more, I don't want to say horror, but I would say more gritty, more real, and still play with fun elements. So the theme essentially is rival gangs, and we are focusing on one of the sides. So essentially it is two sides. They both are kind of represented by an animal theme, and the side that I would like the contest to be focused on are the rabbits, and the other side are like wolves or foxes. And the idea is it's these, I've been trying to think of like gang names all day, and the best thing I came up with so far, like the rabid rebels or something versus the canines on the other side. So it's definitely not like a fantastical theme. It's realistic in a sense of being playful. So I would love to see creativity shine on this, where it's how much of a punky style can you incorporate with this animalistic theme while still having it feel gritty and real in a sense. It's kind of like the how I feel about the Christopher Nolan Batmans, where it's still real, but it definitely plays on a lot of fantastical elements with, like, you know, the vigilante, the caped crusader, and these villains that are all very over the top. And I actually really love that idea. So I want to make that the contest theme. And hopefully we can see some really cool new ideas come out of you guys. And the other thing that I wanted the Rabbit Gang members to have is they all have a bat. I think it's one heavily inspired by the Warriors movie back in the day, but also I love weapons that aren't like sharp objects. I think the shovel is like my favorite weapon ever, and a bat kind of falls into that same category of it being threatening without it being like overly gory or violent. And I love the idea of a blunt object being the weapon that they all carry. And it's like one of those accessible, you can get it in many different places, but it could be a violent weapon if put into the wrong hands. So I think that's what I wanted to depict here.
What if
I'll stop jabbering though, and if we have any questions or any general statements, we can post those.
I have a question. What if you named this gang the Battered Bunnies, and they're like the gang that always gets the crap kicked out of them, but they're like scrappers, you know? So like they're the underdogs.
That I kind of like, yeah.
Where they're like, people are like, oh, you're the Battered Bunnies. You guys aren't anything, you know? And it's like, no, everyone uses a baseball bat, you know, and they can drop people if they wanted to.
Yeah, I like that.
All right. And I still like the California Nines for the canines. I think that's so cool.
Yeah, I do like that too.
Actually, this is Tijal has a great question. At what level should you be before investing in one of these?
Good question. I mean, I've been doing digital art for, I think it's 7 years now, and I just felt like it was the right time for me. And I think it will vary per artist, but this is a really big investment. I think in America, these are, I think this was 1,800 even on sale. And if you compare that to just like a tablet, which ranges around like $70 to $100 typically, or even like 150, I mean, there's a huge jump from going from tablet to Cintiq. So I think I would recommend buying a Cintiq if you are serious about this being your profession. Like, this is not a hobby for you. This is something that you want to be making a career out of. So when is the right time? I guess whenever you feel financially secure to make the purchase, or if you are more of like a risk taker, then I guess it's whenever you prefer. I would recommend though starting with the tablet and making sure that doing digital art is the thing that you are passionate about. I think it just took me a little bit, and even though I love doing digital art, making the investment of a Cintiq is something that I think I put on the back burner for a long time for personal reasons of feeling very comfortable with the tablet. And I don't think there is anything wrong with just using the tablet. I think the main reason I even bought the Cintiq was I've been very into doing traditional drawings lately, and I haven't been able to carry that feeling over into my digital work. And I think a part of it was because of that hand-eye coordination that I wasn't getting with my digital work. So me buying the Cintiq was years of experimenting and figuring out what I wanted and what works best for me. So in this scenario, oh gosh, it's looking like Batman. In this scenario, it does fit my needs. And I think every artist doesn't need a Cintiq. I just think for me personally, it was the right time. And I did do a lot of experimenting beforehand with just the tablet and then going to traditional. And then I even got an opportunity to test it out at a convention recently. And I think that really helped me out to see, yes, I wanted the touch feature. I did not want the 27-inch. I realize that is ginormous. I don't know what artist would want that big of a setup, but there are some artists that do. And I think I just realized that it was not for me. So it really does vary per artist, but I wouldn't jump into getting a Cintiq. I would recommend getting a tablet first.
Valerie Haywich says, Joey, your eyebrows are the best. Thank you. Thank you very much. Jonathan asks, does the Cintiq feel like drawing on paper? I found that most tablets are too smooth and hard to generate any friction like real paper does. Thanks.
I think it's too soon for me to make that call. I think first impression would be nothing can replace paper, but I think over time I may find a similar feeling if I edit some of the settings or work with a different brush, and that I will be able to tell you guys how to do if I end up figuring it out. But as of right now, it does feel more digital, but it definitely feels like I have more freedom with it. So I don't know. It's kind of a weird mix at the moment.
Digital asks, if I put a sheet of paper on a pane of glass and shine a light underneath it, will that be a good alternative, or should I go for the real thing? I want one so bad.
I mean, yeah, that sounds pretty legit. I don't know.
Andre asks, how is the screen on this one? Does it glare easily, or is the screen frosted? Also, Tim, I think I remember you being a bit disappointed with the lack of color/light adjustment on your previous Cintiq. So how is this one?
That's very true. The 13-inch, I think, had a lot of problems for me in terms of the color syncing and the way that it read color. And whenever I would finish an image, I would save it to my desktop and then just upload it to like DeviantArt and Facebook and whatever I was using at the time. And I remember looking at it on my laptop and thinking, well, that is not what I drew. Like, those are not the colors I picked. And only to realize the colors were way off on the 13-inch Cintiq. And I had to do a lot of editing only to find out I could only do so much. I could only up the backlight so much. Where with this Cintiq, I haven't seen any color issue so far. And the backlight is actually pretty wonderful from the short amount of time that I've had to play with it. So I would be honest with you guys. I'm not like a Wacom endorser, so I'm not like getting paid to say good things about Wacom. I'll definitely be honest about how I feel about the Cintiq and things that are going wrong with it or things that I generally don't like. But as of right now, I haven't really found any big like gaping problems that are just like glaringly obvious and things that will be a problem later on. So far, I haven't found any. But like I said, I just got it late last week, and I'm house sitting right now, so I'm actually not even at the house much. So I haven't had much time to really play with it. But the times that I have played with it, I really like it.
I want a companion too so bad. Miss Shipyard asks, is there places where you can test Cintiqs out? I really just want to see what it's like, but I'm not sure what I want to save up for one. I'm thinking of upgrading my bamboo crate for an Intuos.
I don't know how it is for other countries, but in America, I think it is a little harder to find places to test out Cintiqs. The only place I knew of that I could test it out at was at the conventions that I always go to. And the last one that I was at had, it wasn't even a Wacom booth, actually. It was a, oh, what was it? It was one of the painting softwares. Sketchbook Pro. And for whatever reason, they had just every type of Cintiq out. So I was like, okay, Sketchbook, like I'll pretend to feign interest in Sketchbook to use your Cintiqs. So I was able to play with all three of them, and that's how I was able to. But I know at like Best Buy, they don't just have them open to test. Or I don't even know if some Best Buys carry them or whatever the equivalence electronic store would be. I just know that like Wacom doesn't push them out in like Targets or like big chain stores. So you do kind of have to do your research on where you could find them and how you could test them.
Valerie asks, I found myself using airbrush a lot in Photoshop, so my paintings start to look blurry. It always happens due to blending. Do you have any tips on how I can avoid this effect?
Wait, say that again?
Apparently they find themselves using the airbrush a lot in Photoshop, and it starts off and the painting starts to look blurry, uh, and it happens whenever they're blending. And do you have any tips on how they can avoid that?
Yeah, actually, I did a whole tutorial on just using a soft edge brush, and you can definitely make it look blurry, but you can definitely crisp it up if you just know how to handle the tool you're working with. So in the case of working primarily with like a soft brush, or in your case, the airbrush, when you're working on big, large detail like the shapes, like in this case, like if we were just doing the silhouette, you'd use a large brush and it might be more soft along the edges. And then as you would go in, either with your eraser or your soft edge brush, you would create tighter, crisper edges along the edge. And that's what will give it a more or a less blurry result. So in your case, focus on contrast and know when to add it. It's okay if the image starts out more soft. I actually would recommend images looking more soft to begin with and then rendering them out. It's a lot harder to render out images that have hard edges everywhere, because then you have to constantly work to soften them up. So it really does depend on the flow that you have and the render style that you go for. But if you're starting with a soft brush, that's okay. Just know you have to add contrast in areas that you want to focus on, or you want the viewer to focus on, and knowing how to do that.
Mel asks, can I afford this when I sell my left arm? How much does an arm go for on the black market these days, Tim?
I don't know. I think you'd get more for an arm and a leg.
Where did that question go? Isa asks, what happened to the Cintiq 13 HD?
It is sitting in my room. Actually, this is pretty bad. It's just sitting in my room, or I think it's down here. It's somewhere just sitting, and it's collecting dust. And it's not even worth trying to sell it, because then whoever I'd sell it to would have to fix it, and I feel like I'd be burdening someone else with the problem. And I guess I could just sell it broken and let them know that it does not work properly, but I just haven't taken the time to do that.
I'm gonna say yours was pretty broken from when I saw it. Like the screen was all like jacked up, you know?
It was pretty rough.
And you had to like push on it in order for the screen to go back to normal.
Yeah. I had to like apply pressure on the bottom. It was a mess.
Andrew McKinney asks, maybe it's too soon to ask, but do you think it takes as much time to really adjust to a Cintiq as it did for your first tablet?
No. I think the first time I adjusted to just the tablet, I was also learning Photoshop. So it was kind of like a double punch, where not only was I learning this new hand-eye coordination thing, but I was trying to learn a new software. And Photoshop is not a very friendly software at first. I think there's a lot of tools, and the interface is a bit overwhelming at first glance. So I would say that was probably the hardest time, was learning how to work with my tablet. But now that I understand Photoshop enough, and I've worked digitally for so long, I can make the adjustment on my Cintiq a lot faster.
Jamie asks, there used to be a lot of questions about becoming an artist faster, but I was wondering, how would you recommend becoming one more efficiently?
How to become a more efficient artist? I definitely think recognizing where your flaws are is kind of a big thing on becoming a more efficient artist, because then you're able to work on what isn't working in your pieces rather than only focusing on what does. Just be more efficient. If you're talking about like efficiency in a time management way, I think then you have to really challenge yourself on being like, I have an hour to paint something. Let's go. And then physically set a timer somewhere and keep within that time restriction that you've given yourself and just see where it turns out in the end. And if you kind of notice along the way you're struggling or you're slowing down, be aware of it and recognize that you are slowing down and push yourself to be faster. And over time, after you do this enough times, you'll get faster, but it really does take time and a really dedicated amount of effort. So I really don't think there is like a quick fix on becoming a good artist fast. I think it really just depends on each artist's their own passion and their determination to get better, and that's what gets artists faster, quicker, is if they're more passionate and they are dedicated to drawing every day and really making an effort to improve their skills.
Yeah, I'd also say that it also determines on the individual's uh, intellectual, like how they can perceive information and digest it and really understand it, you know?
Yeah.
Mel asks, how can I break through an artistic plateau?
Uh, I feel like we're asked this a lot, and there are so many different ways to do it. I just think from personal experience, sometimes it's good to just take a break, like a legit artistic break. Go do something, go take a walk, do something that isn't art related, and then come back at it with a fresh pair of eyes. And I think in terms of being inspired, if you're like hitting a plateau where all of your creativity, it just seems to like run dry, then you need to go out and actually experience something that is inspiring for you. I think relying on just past experiences can only carry you so far, and to continue to create new things and be inspired and motivated, you really should, live your life as an artist and get inspired from the world around you. And as I'm older, I'm finding that more and more to be true, where I'm just pulling from personal experiences and the pieces that I do. And even like last summer, there was this bird that flew into my window and it left this trail of black blood. And I think that was one of the first times I really, really thought about using things that happen to me in my life. And they don't have to be like these big, sad heartbreak stories or death. It can be something as bizarre and random as the bird flying into the window and then looking. I mean, it sounds kind of weird, but analyzing the bird's body and looking at the wingspan and how their feet work and just learning from that, something that is so abnormal that you can take from. And you can't force inspiration, but if you look for it, you will find it. And you'll find it in the most bizarre places. What was the last one that when I was making soup one day, after you cook it, and then if you take it out, and if you have a light shining on it, this is going to sound so bizarre, but if you have a light shining on it, and if you look at the soup from a low viewing angle, you can see the oils and some of the, there's like a film on top of the soup, and it like creates this very swirly, bizarre pattern. And I was like taking reference photos of the top layer of my soup, and those patterns I found so interesting and intriguing. And I want to incorporate some of those swirls into some of my pencil drawings. So you can find inspiration anywhere. You just have to know how to look for it and actually be looking for it, because there are so many things that pass us by all the time and we don't notice them because we're not looking for them.
Jamie says, did you have a good Joe day, Joe? I guess March 27th was International Joe Day.
Oh,
I would say my day was good. Joe Day. I am not asks, drawing or painting, what do you prefer?
Drawing. I don't even think there's like a discussion in my head for that. It's definitely drawing.
I'm starting to lean to painting. With Paint Tool Sai, I'm like really just loving just like throwing paint down, you know?
I don't know. I'm one of those like weird, meticulous, slow artists, and I take God forever on everything. But I like that.
Draw for Life asks, will there be a stream about anatomy, gesture, and poses?
Yeah. I feel like we're constantly trying to find new topics to do, and I'm definitely open to doing anything on these live streams in terms of drawing or painting. Whenever it comes to environments, though, I would rather have someone else do environments just because my knowledge on them is so basic, where I'd rather have someone that really knows what they're doing and be able to teach it in a functional way. All right, let's see here. I think I'm going to zoom in. Let's focus on cleaning up this guy's face. And that was all on one layer. So now I'm grabbing a new layer, and I'm still working with the same brush. I'm just going to make it a lot smaller.
Hazemaker asks, would a Cintiq work better for a desktop or laptop computer? And have you made any changes to your computer settings to improve how the Cintiq runs?
I think it would work better on a monitor or on a desktop instead of a laptop, but I think that just comes down to like processing power and memory and stuff. Have I done any settings? No, I have not. This is literally some of my first times drawing and painting with the Cintiq. I really haven't noticed though a lot of things that I would want edited. Like I thought for sure I'd have to edit the backlight and the color settings, but I really haven't been like glaringly annoyed by it, and I've actually felt pretty comfortable by the settings that come standard with it.
Turquoise Punk asks, I've realized lately that I'm focusing too much on the end result of my art, and it's been stressing me out too much to draw. Since then, I've started just drawing entirely freely, and it's a lot more fun. But I'm not improving. Help?
It's kind of a tough question because if you're actually genuinely enjoying the process, then you've definitely improved in figuring out how you can enjoy drawing. And I think now you got to take the more critical self-awareness into, okay, what am I not so great at? Is it lighting? Is it color? Let me still have fun with it, but throw in some technical understandings and challenge myself to become better. And over time, you won't have to worry so much about the technical things at all. You'll just get to have fun again. But there has to be some point in your life where you are learning a lot of the technicalities of doing art. And a lot of people don't see this as being very fun, but I really do believe it's necessary in having fun later in the long run when you're just doing your paintings and you're not focusing on like, why isn't my light source feeling accurate in this painting? If anything, it'll be like, what could I add aesthetically that is more pleasing rather than it being a more technical based question. Okay, even though this is a bunny mask, we're going to give it a human skull to kind of represent that there is a human behind the facade of this mask here. So I'm going to add more of like human teeth rather than give it like the big buck teeth.
Nail asks, I found that I draw a lot better when using reference. The problem is that drawing things that exist already is so boring. Any ideas?
Yeah. it sounds like maybe your style hasn't emerged yet, because eventually you should be able to look at a reference, and when you recreate it, it almost like has this new look to it because you're adding your style to that reference. Like if it's a dog, yeah, a dog may not be the most interesting subject matter for you, but you can paint it in a way, or you can draw it in a way that does become interesting to you. And usually that's when you see an artist's style really shine, because then they're applying what makes their work so awesome and incredible and interesting to look at to a more mundane subject matter. So don't force it, and try to see even the most mundane subject matters as interesting, and try to make it something that would be more interesting for you to paint, whether that's adding new colors, new lighting schemes, whatever it might be. Try to make it more interesting for you.
I am at asks, scrolling through my favorites on an ArtStation/DA, I've noticed that I don't draw the types of art I like to look at, and I'm trying to change my mindset to make stuff I'd enjoy to consume, but it's hard to let go of old habits. Any tips on changing that?
On changing what you like? Uh, that's a tough question, because I think a lot of what you like is your taste. And I don't think you should feel like you have to switch it. I think you'll always be generally attracted to a certain look or a certain aesthetic. Uh, if you're talking about you want like higher technical quality art, or if there's like specific things, like some artists that I follow now, they don't use lighting, and I find that really intriguing. And someone told me that you're usually intrigued by art that you don't do, or art that you think you may be capable of doing, but you just haven't reached that yet. So I guess just be thinking about, why do I like this person's art over another person? And is it the way that they handle their their technique in painting? Is it the actual subject matter themselves? Am I more drawn to a specific theme or thematic elements? Is it like recently I've been drawn to art that includes like horror masks or fashion masks, and I think that's just because I've been more influenced and intrigued by that recently, where that's what I'm specifically looking for. And there's a grittiness to artists like Ashley Wood, or these other artists that I follow, that I'm looking at why I'm so intrigued or so fascinated by their work. And I think once you start to figure that out, then you try to start applying that own that knowledge that you've acquired into your own pieces. So I don't think you have to generally change your subject, like completely shift it. I think you just have to start understanding, why do you like certain art over other art. And I think that is actually more important to explore than, why is this artist better than this artist.
Um, I'm I'm wondering if the question was more about um, that they feel like that they like a certain art, and they're trying to make make the art that they see, you know.
That's what I'm saying. Like, try to, when you're looking at these art, like even Ashley Wood, I have some of his references right now for when I'm painting this. He does a lot of this kind of random texture splatter where it's this gradient from light to dark. And I'm trying to apply that to now my drawings. So you have to really look at why you like a certain artist aesthetic, and then try to adapt it into your own pieces.
Tuition7 says this drawing brings back memories of Donnie Darko. Love it.
I do like the Donnie Darko mask a lot.
Katie Anderson asks, how do you balance looking at artists for inspiration but not getting discouraged, overwhelmed by how good their art is in comparison to your own art?
This is a good question. I think I've always been very hard-headed with art. I've always seen it as more of like a competition, and I would always look up to artists that I knew were better than me, but in the back of my mind, I would always be like, oh, I want to create something just as good as that someday, and I would work towards that goal. So I think I'm usually like motivated or inspired when I see art that I consider so much better than my own, and it gives me like a bridge to gap that I want to one day be or create works that are just as incredible. And I think the only time I've really been discouraged from doing art has been more on like the digital spectrum, where some artists that I look at, it's their process that I think I get discouraged by, because I know myself. I know the kind of artist I am, and I'm a very slow, detail oriented artist. So it's hard for me to do spit paints and things that aren't I'm not able to spend a lot of time in, because a lot of the time when I'm working, it's very therapeutic for me, and I go at a very slow pace, and I'm meticulous about things. And even though I would consider those all very negative things about the process, I do find it very enjoyable. So then when I watch an artist that is able to paint really fast and using all these different crazy brushes, I think that's when I get a little discouraged. But then I need to like build myself back up and be like, okay, you can do this. Try using a similar technique or download a different set of brushes and just experiment with them. Because just sitting there and kind of focusing on why you're not as good as someone else, I mean, it's not going to help anything. You're not going to get better from that. You're not going to feel better about your art. Nothing's getting done. So the best thing you can do is focus on, well, how can I fix it, essentially? And taking those steps are what, well, I feel like being a really good, solid concept artist, a lot of the times is being a really solid problem solver. And I think that's just like another example of a problem that comes up, and then it's up to you to figure out, how do I overcome this? How do I fix this problem? So yeah.
The what was I gonna say? As far as like, because I think, like Tim said, it's really important to the artists that you're looking up to, or that you're inspired from. Like, see what Tim was saying before. See what they do and utilize that, and like why does that inspire you, or like, you know what I mean? Where it's um it should never be discouraging. Art, I don't think, should ever be really discouraging, especially if someone's better than you. And at the same time, uh, for you, I don't think you should be discouraged by not making a fantastic, beautiful art that or that you think is fantastic and beautiful, um, of an artist who is, in their 40s, and they've been doing this for, since they could pick up a crayon. And if you can't do that, or what their level of mastery is, I think it's selling that artist a bit short to say that, like, hey, I can do that. It takes time, you know. So I would say use your inspiration, but never be discouraged, because you know that if you're going to continue working and working, and there's going to be an artist that's in your same spot, several years down the road, when you've acquired all this knowledge and you've gotten way better, and they're going to look to you and be like, oh man, this is their artwork's amazing. And it's just like this cycle that continues to go on. Tijol says, this is what the Easter Bunny should look like.
That's how I see the Easter Bunny. It's actually really exciting. This is like the first time I get to draw a hand on a Cintiq. So I get to see if this is like I feel like this is a bigger test for me right now, if I'm able to draw or paint, I should say, this hand digitally and feel good about the outcome. So we'll see.
Fabian Dornbo says, Joe, do you have any recommendations for good texture brushes for Paint Tool Sci? I've been looking for them all day. I just can't find them. I actually just use the flat fine brush, and I bump up the density of the brush to 100%, and I usually use it as a square brush because I really enjoy how that moves. I know that there's tons of brushes out there that people post up for Paint Tool Sci. I'm pretty sure you could just type in Google Paint Tool Sci brushes. As far as like the way that Paint Tool Sci brushes are, though, they're a lot more tricky than Photoshop ones. Photoshop's pretty streamlined now, whereas Paint Tool Sci is a lot of uh, fidgeting with uh, like actual JPEG settings and stuff. Unfortunately. I think possibly I might do a one-off tutorial on creating brushes for Paint Tool Sci if people are interested. Andrew McKinney asks, that texture brush you're using, is it the part of the set somewhere or did you custom make it?
This is one of the brushes that I made that is in the CG Cookie Citizen Pack. So actually, let me do a. So it's pretty much just a static angled brush. So if you want to create your own, just pretty much do like the selection tool and just go crazy with diagonals and angles and triangles. And I mean, then you go through the process of creating the brush. But if you want to use this specific one, it is in the CG Cookie resource page under brushes.
Taki asks, have you ever used a non-Wacom tablet?
Kind of. I mean, I had a Bamboo Fun, but I know that's still Wacom at first. But whenever I was teaching at AI for the bit, whenever I would go to each student and try to help them out, I would use whatever tablet they were using on their computer. And some of them had the weirdest. There were brands that I've never even heard before. But essentially, most of them, and I really do believe this, they all do pretty much the same thing. It's just a comfort and a personal preference. There may have been one where I did notice the sensitivity was a little less responsive than the typical Wacom one, but it was such a minor thing that I wouldn't even like make it that known that they were so different. It was very minor. So I do think most tablets are pretty much the same. It's just a comfort thing.
Mel asks, is it unhealthy that I worked for 10 to 12 hours on my digital art for days? Maybe I should get a life, but I want to become an artist so bad.
No, I don't think it's unhealthy. I just, to me, that says dedicated. But I think it depends on who you talk to. Where I actually got into a discussion with some of my friends recently about this, where it's that whole argument of if you want to be a successful artist, you have to sacrifice your friends and family. And I do believe there has to be a level of sacrifice that you're willing to make. I do not believe you have to sacrifice your family and friends. I think there will be some friends that will get, pushed aside, or, you don't talk to them as much, but then you'll find friends that are, at least from my own experience, you'll find friends that are more into art, and you can do things like Google Hangout and you draw with them at night, and like that becomes your hangout because you found friends that are interested in the same thing that you're interested in. And I think that's the natural progression of friendship. So I think that's normal. But when it comes to family, I do think you have to make a family a priority and making time for them, because it's kind of that whole argument of like everything with fame, is it worth it in the end? Like once you have success and fame, was it worth the time lost that you had with friends and family? And I think you can have a balance. I really, really do believe in that. And I don't think it's unhealthy for the times that you're really like gun ho on drawing to spend hours on and days on it. I think that admittedly is like a normal progression for artists that do take this more seriously. And and if you genuinely enjoy doing it, like think of what else would you be doing with your time if you weren't hanging out with friends or family? Like you might be playing video games or something that really isn't productive in art skill or like advancing your skill level. So I don't see it as being like way too much or overwhelming. I almost just see that as being more normal. And I think sometimes artists need to hear that hard truth of this is not easy. This industry is not an easy one to get into or to maintain, especially as a freelance artist. And you really have to dedicate a lot of your life to this. And the sooner that you become more familiar with like the fundamentals of lighting and color and just becoming a faster artist, it allows you to spend more time with your friends and family because you took the time to become a more efficient artist.
I'd also implore you to stretch. Uh, it would be unhealthy if you just sat for 10 to 12 hours and just stared at a computer screen all day. That I think that's a bit unhealthy, or like stared at a sketch pad all day. Um, taking like 5 minute breaks is often good. I actually ran into the problem where started getting tendonitis in my wrist because I was working at a weird angle for too long. And so I had to adjust a lot of my desk and I had to take a break because I was going to further injure my wrist. Um, but I mean, it sounds like you're already an artist if you're working that many hours towards your craft. I think that's kind of, isn't it kind of weird where it's like someone, or you don't think you're an artist, I guess, you know, like I don't know what would be the making someone an artist and not an artist. Cause you know, someone who's creative, I guess, versus someone who isn't.
I just think they're passionate and they're dedicated. So if anything, from what they're saying, I feel good about the path that they're on because it sounds like they're willing to sacrifice and spend the time necessary to become a great artist.
So then would you say that people uh who are in that same boat, like but with like business, would you consider them artists?
Well, if we get into that whole argument of what is art,
Yeah.
I think
I mean,
everything could be art, nothing's art.
yeah. That's what I was just curious as to know if you considered like a businessman that was like super into business, was like, is he like a connoisseur or a craftsman of business, you know?
Yeah, is he probably someone that is more successful on a business standpoint than someone that like will like refuses to go on road trips because he doesn't want to leave his family? Yes, but it depends on what is your definition of success. Like the businessman that would is willing to like not have a family and travel the world and make as many business ventures as possible. That could be his version of success. That doesn't mean he'll be happy, or it might mean he'll be happy because everyone's version of what makes them happy is different too.
Hmm.
So when it comes to art, uh, I, I I just get kind of defensive when people say that I I don't spend enough time with family or friends or whatever, just because I am genuinely happy when I'm doing art, and I do make an effort to see friends and family. It's just the ones that I don't talk to as much have kind of fallen off over the years, just as like a natural progression. And I don't I don't personally see that as a bad thing. I see it as I found new friends that I feel I can engage with in this new thing that I'm really interested in. And ooh, I don't know if I like that or not. And uh, I'm able to move forward with these new friends. So I don't. For me, I I think I am the kind of artist that would spend hours upon hours in improving their work and wanting to become better at their art, and not feel like I've thrown away uh, my life. Essentially, I haven't like given up what really matters in life.
Talkie asks, would you ever consider returning to sculpting?
Absolutely. I can't wait to actually during the summer, me and my roommate Tyler are really interested in doing more sculpting, and that is something that I can't wait to get back into.
Caroline asks, how long until you decided to draw to make a living from it?
Like I said earlier, I was a very hard-headed child where I never considered another path besides when I was in high school. I thought if art, for whatever reason, didn't work out, I'd become a biologist. But I've always thought art would be my career. I never like thought I wouldn't be doing art of some kind. And I guess I've never really been asked that question before because I've never thought about it. So I guess really early on, I thought this would be what I'd be making money on forever. It just kind of was that idea of it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of how. And that would, I guess that's my answer. Let me zoom out. I'm getting way too focused on details. Okay.
Tigil asks, still no news about the secret CG cookie project? No.
No, I am very excited about it, but I can't focus on it until after the workshop's done.
Uh-oh. There we go. Toby asks, have you ever played with an iPad Pro? Do you feel like the Cintiq is better drawing experience? It seems much better than my 13HD at least.
The one time I was able to mess with it a little bit, I actually really liked the iPad Pro. It was funny. I asked on Twitter. I'm becoming more familiar with Twitter now, and was just like, does anyone own a iPad Pro, and what's your general opinion of it? And I had 3 people get back to me, and they were just like, don't buy it. It's not as capable as the Cintiq. And then I started doing my own research, and I really decided that the Cintiq was a better fit for me. But I would be curious if someone has the iPad Pro, if they would have like specific reasons, even further as to why they don't think it was as good of a fit as a Cintiq.
Jet asks, I'm signed up for an art festival in July. What kinds of things sell well at cons and festivals? I'm planning on prints, stickers, and keychains.
You'll be surprised by what sells and what doesn't. I think you can always like take pretty solid assumptions, but until you actually do it a few times, you'll kind of figure out like which of your products sell better than what. For me personally, I definitely noticed that fan art buttons were a big thing, or just fan art in general. Doing prints that are very bold and kind of to the point, and doing something that people are familiar with and comfortable with. But then it goes back to that whole discussion of, well, do you want to do more of like original art, or do you want to do more of like catering to like what the audience wants? And you'll figure that out over time, and just be open to trying new things and selling new things at cons, and figuring out like, oh, maybe stickers were a better option than buttons, or maybe prints are your way of going, or pins, or those little key charms. And there's so many things out there. And I think the best advice is to just explore as many as you can and figure out which is what is working and what's not, and then capitalize on what is working and then kind of push out what's not.
And do things that you'll enjoy. Draw subject matters that you'll like working on. Because if you're like, oh, I'm just gonna work on this Adventure Time print, and you're really not into Adventure Time, that Adventure Time print is probably not gonna feel, you're not gonna have the love into it. I think one of the best things about cons and selling artwork to people was like sitting there and being able to talk to people about Superman or Batman and Spider-Man, all those things, and really connecting with those people was awesome. You know.
Oh yeah.
Taki asks, is dropping out of high school to focus on art a good idea?
um, bold question. Do, uh, man, how would I answer this if I was honest? One of my mottos is I try never ever to lie. So if I was honest with you right now, you could still make it as an artist, because in our industry, it's not so much your education background or a piece of paper having a degree saying what you went to school for matters. It's your portfolio. So honestly, you could. Would I recommend it? No. I think there are things that you can learn in high school, just about yourself and about just things about life. Really, as much as I was more of like I wasn't so much the quiet kid in high school, but I was definitely always in the art room, and I made new types of friends that I don't think I would have ever made if I didn't go to high school. And the teacher that I had is still my biggest influence for my art, and I wouldn't have had that if I would have dropped out of high school. So, and honestly, like you're so young still that who knows? I mean, if you were like me, you knew that art was going to be your passion and what you were going to pursue. But if you still aren't 100% sure, and you dropped out of high school, and then like 2 years later you realize maybe art isn't your thing, then it's a little tougher, because then you'd have to go back to high school again. And I feel like this is a really tough question, because I definitely am playing both sides of the field right now, and I don't want to be. So if you stay in school, awesome. I think there'll be things that you can learn. If you drop out of school, I think you can still make it in this industry. Just beef up your portfolio and really focus on the strength of your portfolio.
That's such a weird, like a rough question, because it's like if you have the ability to learn on your own, I feel like that's kind of what like school should be, is teaching you how to learn, as opposed
Yeah.
to like this is math, this is science. You know, I think that that would be able to carry someone really far even without high school. You know, like back in the day when they did like apprenticeships and stuff, it was it was
Yeah.
it was more about like this is how you learn. Tidja wants to know, is it legal to marry a Cintiq in the United States?
Probably. I feel like nothing's illegal in terms of marriage in the United States. Well, actually, that sounded bad. Hashtag love wins. I'm pretty sure I watched a documentary about someone that married a doll. So that would be an inanimate object. So I wouldn't be surprised if you could marry a Cintiq. I know this isn't a serious question, but I responded with a serious answer.
My question is, what are you going to do with that Cintiq, Tidjal? Mishibi Artist says, I love how weird and eccentric we artists are. I'm glad I'm not alone.
Oh yeah, no, I'm like the weirdest person I know. And I, whenever I am with my family and I say that to my cousins, and my mom's within earshot, she'll be like, "Well, they're not, he's not that weird." And I'll be like, "No, mom, I'm the weirdest person. Like I really don't know anyone weirder that I've met in person." And honestly, like embrace being so weird. I think it will come through in your art if you really are open to the bizarre and the strange and the unknown.
Winter in Berlin says, in Germany, both our big electronic store chains have tablets for you set up in the bigger stores. I go there like every week to draw on their
What?
Cintiqs. I know, I heard that and I was like, what?
Well, you're very lucky.
You know what? I'm gonna Google that after the stream and see where I can, if there's like a place that we can go.
I don't know. Maybe we're just not looking in the right places.
Andrew McKinney says, if you're looking for stream topics, might I request figures/characters in extreme perspective or dynamic action?
Yeah, we could do that.
And I think Tigil made a response to that about there's a whole forum where you can make suggestions. Vukasin says, what do you think about people using nicknames for art? I mean using made up names and not real names.
I'm fine with it. I personally am glad that I kind of picked my name to work with early on, because I don't know if I would have picked a name that I wouldn't have liked like 3 years later. I know two of my roommates had made up names, and now they're trying to go through that whole process of changing it. And it's a struggle because a lot of their art that they've either sold or the website that people may have been following them on, it changes, and they're trying to do a big change where it is a little harder if you've stuck with a name for a very long time. And as a more well-known one, it was Purple Kekleon, and she moved from Purple Kekleon to Mel Herring, her actual name. And I think it was because she was trying to get away from the whole Pokemon association and become kind of her own artist. And she had to make like a lot of blog posts about it, and let people know that she was changing her name. And it was a process. It was a big process. And thankfully, the book that she made, she got a copy of it right as she was changing her name. And at first it was Purple Kekleon, but since she was making changes to the book, she was able to actually change the author to Mel Herring instead of Purple Kekleon. And that, I think that saved her a lot of trouble down the line than if she would have just done Purple Kekleon. Because then your a published work has your name stamped on it, or your old name stamped on it. It does become a little trickier then. Like then if someone wants to buy you and they borrow their friend's copy, they're going to look up Purple Kekleon. I mean, I'm sure they'd be able to find it. It would just create a bit more confusion, and not sure if it's like the right name or whatever.
Never get married.
Well, I guess I don't know how it is in other countries, but in America, if you're a guy, typically you stick with your last name. So even if I get married, I'm going to keep my my art name, Von.
Caroline says, love the sound of you laughing, Joe. S2. Oh, 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 oh. Okudowapuna. Solo. Oh, 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 oh. Jewel Bang says, whenever I draw hands, I feel like I always have to see all fingers, which sometimes leads to some awkward hands. The exception is thumbs.
Stop it. If it looks unnatural, it probably feels unnatural to the viewer. So don't force fingers in there when it really doesn't make sense. And actually, I'm really glad to hear that you like drawing hands. I think that's usually the opposite case with a lot of artists. So keep it up. Definitely, put your hands in the spotlight and let people know like you are not afraid to draw hands. Just make sure you're not doing like unrealistic interpretations of hands because you want to kind of show off all the fingers in the hand.
Actually, I just started realizing how much your other fingers hide when you're drawing hands. And it bothers me because it's like, I want to show everything. No, you want to be like super expressive. And it's like, well, you don't really need to. If anything, most of the time, your ring finger and your pinky are usually covered up.
Yeah.
Tigil says, people, please don't throw birds at the window just to have good reference. Just buy a chicken.
He makes a point.
It'll be funny one day. You'll just be at your computer working, and I'll just stand outside and I'll just throw like a chicken I bought at the store at the window.
Oh, God.
Taki asks, have you ever worked on concept for games/movies?
Only really low key, like very low key ones. One or two of them were I was in college and I had these internships where I was doing. One of them was called Rig Fire, and that one was like a iPad game, but that one required me to learn so much I did not know about, like how to save out files, sizing, making sure things fit in a certain diameter. Uh, I had to learn how to animate in Photoshop, so that was a big thing. I guess moral of this story is even with a project that I really was not like passionate about at all, I learned a lot just by doing this very small internship that I obviously wasn't very into the aesthetic of what they were doing, but I was very much into the idea of having an internship on my resume when I graduated. So take each new experience and try to find the silver lining from it. And the other, I mean, I've worked at a game with CG Cookie, but the other one outside of CG Cookie was um, just a small one where it was they wanted me to create character concepts for their game, whatever. And one of them was a fantasy character, and it was like a poor boy, and it was like right down my alley. I was like, I got this, and that one I learned a lot about how to communicate with your client, and admittedly, I wasn't as good with emailing. Not to say that I am now, but back then I was even worse. And a lot of the times I would email them something on Monday, and if they would get back to me Tuesday, I wouldn't respond with a new drawing until like Friday. And I think I could tell just over time they were irritated that I wouldn't just respond to just the fact that I got their email. So, lesson from that, definitely communication is huge when you're not working in the same studio as your employer. So take any learning opportunity you can from experiences that may not seem fun or like or something that you think you won't learn from. I almost promise you you'll learn something, even if it's usually like from a negative trait that you might have about how you work. So yeah, I definitely had some, and I don't regret it.
Eric asks, do you have some sort of daily motivation? What are some life quotes you really like?
Oh God. You're asking like the person that lives and breathes off of quotes to say it's a few of their favorite. Oh man. Some of my favorite quotes. I think it would be a crime if I didn't say one of my favorite ones is every day is a rededication. That's something that I try to remember with specifically with my book Swordplay, and just trying to work on it every day. And I make excuses. I will work on something else, and I have to like constantly remind myself that if you want this to get done, you have to spend the time and work on it. So I love that quote. And then the other one that I really like right now is pressure makes diamonds. And I think that kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier with the artists that spend 8 hours just drawing at their computer, and on the weekends they're not playing video games, they're partying. When they're in school, they're just in front of their computers and working on a new painting. And obviously I relate to that because I didn't have internet in my dorm when I was in college. Every now and then we could steal it from the hotel that was nearby, but for the most part we never got internet. So it like forced me to just draw all the time, and I'm so thankful I didn't have internet. And I think that's why I'm not a big like Facebook person now, or I'm not a big I don't really play video games either anymore, because I learned to have fun with drawing and painting. And that's why I really like the quote pressure makes diamonds, because I was under a lot of pressure at that time to just constantly create and be better than my friend Newbie at the time, who I respected as an artist, and I wanted to be better than her. And I'm so grateful that she was there with me. One last quote that I really like. Shoot, what was it? I was watching.
I know what it is.
I don't think you do. because this one was on The Biggest Loser or some kind of a weight loss show. And the trainer was saying something along the lines of, if you learn to love the fight, you'll never really lose a battle. And I love that quote because as competitive as I like to be, I think you learn more when you lose. And I think it's understanding that when you do lose, being able to look at the situation and be like, well, what can I learn from this to do better next time? And in terms of arts, whenever I like lose, like you have a physical competition that you lose in, you just are able to reflect then on the piece that you submitted and think, okay, why was this not selected? What can I do better on the next one? And it's the idea of, yeah, you lost the fight, but you're still winning the battle type of a feel. But what were you going to say?
You forgot your favorite one, which is ask any racer, any real racer. It doesn't matter if you win by an inch or a mile. Winning's winning.
No, that I don't like. I like second place is the first loser. That one I do like.
What about I live my life a quarter mile at a time. Nothing else matters. Not the mortgage, not the store, not my team, and all their both. Oh, I can't say that. For those 10 seconds or less, I'm free.
Where is that from?
Ride or die, remember?
No. Where is that from?
It's one of your favorite movies, I swear.
Moulin Rouge. Cintiq, New York. Come on.
This time it ain't just about being fast.
I have no idea what you're talking about right now.
It's from Fast and Furious.
I've never seen it.
What?
Joe, come on. Am I the type of person to watch mainstream Hollywood blockbusters?
Yeah, you love Fast and the Furious. We talked about it all the time.
Segue.
Tidjal wants to know, is your Cintiq 13 HD collecting dust in your room?
Yes.
That's bad. That's too bad, by the way. It's my birthday in 2 months.
Yeah, you want a broken Cintiq. Like, Digital, I don't even think this is worth trying to salvage at this point. Because it's something with a mechanic inside where I must have dropped it, and I'm sure I did, where there is something just off.
Jensen Chung says, ahoy hoy, guess who just got here? Wait, what? It's almost over? Sad face. Jamie says, you can sell a hand on the market for $185.
I'm glad to know we have someone that knows this information. Actually, it's useful if I ever need to sell my hand.
Would you sell your hand?
My left, maybe, never my right. I mean, I would really need to have to sell my hand for me to want to do that.
I was gonna say $185 isn't a lot.
Yeah, now that I think about it, no, I could get that money in other ways.
Yeah, I mean, I was about to say, like, that's it? Like $185?
I feel like you could make a lot more off of selling a hand.
I mean, you could learn how to use a yo-yo with your left hand and like do ambidextrous yo-yo tricks and make probably coin on the street just doing yo-yo tricks and make $185 a week doing that.
Not even. I feel like you could make more than that in a day.
Turquoise Punk says, I love how awkward and disjointed your conversation got there for a moment.
Yeah, for anyone that doesn't know, I have never seen The Fast and the Furious.
Jensen says, I'll pay €100 for Tim's left hand. Pounds are more than dollars. That's a bargain for you.
I'll think about it. All right, let's give them some background elements to play with here.
Taki says, "Do you think that if you spend $1,000 on a Fujing license for software, the company should at least offer you free education
For $100?
for 1,000?"
Yes. My personal opinion would be yes, but I'm sure as a company, for them to make the tutorials and the education, it would cost quite a bit. But yeah, I would personally hope they would, but it doesn't sound like they do.
I was gonna say most softwares come with education on how to use their software along with like how to make stuff. I know ZBrush does. They have like a huge portion of their site that says how to like build stuff in ZBrush and how to use the program efficiently. Valerie says, "I wish there was a stream every day."
I feel like that would be awesome as well as horrible, just because that'd be a lot of talking and work that I don't think I'd be capable of doing.
Then
I mean, you gotta remember, guys. I mean, I'm an artist too. I'm just as shy and awkward as most of the artists that you guys meet. It just seems like I know what I'm doing.
Venerai says, "So I really want to get comfortable with anatomy, like sketching from the mind. What's the best reference for practice? From life, random photos, or what?"
I've always been told that drawing from life is the best way to go, and I think I do agree with that. I think there is something that you get just having that presence there and being able to adjust it or change the lighting or actually touch like some things like that have texture and material to it. You can feel it, and if it's something like fur, you can actually adjust like the placement of the hair strands and create a more interesting flow to the hair or whatever it might be. And honestly, just having the physical presence, like if you were drawing, let's say this bunny mask was real and I had it on a stand right next to me, I feel like I can get a lot more crisp details and I can really look inside of the scratch marks or look for dirt that might be hidden in some crevices where you wouldn't get that from like a Google image, you know? So I think from life, if possible. If not, there are so many outlets out there. Like I feel like lately I've been more on the Pinterest train. I go there to gather a lot of my reference images. But I mean, literally, you could just Google anything that you want, and you'll find probably pretty good, solid images and references for you to use.
I would suggest taking a figure drawing class at a local college if you can. Just take the course. You will learn a lot about anatomy and just like especially if you want to get more comfortable. That's like you will get very comfortable in a figure drawing class.
Yeah, and those were the best classes I had in school. We kind of have a idea of what the human body and anatomy looks like, but then once you start noticing like how the muscle moves underneath of the skin and how that changes the outer layer, and you can see some of the definition of like the veins or the muscles or the fat tissue, things that you normally wouldn't get, but since it's right there in front of you and it's like you have to draw what you see and you start to really observe things that normally you wouldn't. So life drawing is like, admittedly, I think that was the best class I had in college, just from a learning standpoint.
Yeah. Oh man, so many like the worst and the best is when you get sat in like a spot that's directly in front of the model, but it's just like 1 point perspective and like you have to draw like the feet and the legs and then like the crotch, and then you can't really see the head. Those were like the worst, but yet the best poses because it was really challenging.
Yeah.
Asks, ever have you ever had the problems getting enough sleep through massive inspiration attacks in the middle of the night? Last time I had this, I had to get up 5 times and sketch my ideas. Also, thanks about the info about the hand. Should get some money. It should get me some money.
Yeah, I would say there's 2 times that I can remember specifically. I woke up in the middle of the night and I had to draw it right away because I know how bad I am with my short-term memory and I would forget it if I didn't draw it. So I just like, I always sleep next to my sketchbook. So I just like turned to a new page and I like jotted the idea down in like a little sample and I went back to bed. But have there been times where I can't go to sleep because I'm thinking of a new drawing? Yes. And the way that I usually get it out, if I don't do like a quick doodle of it, I'll actually write it. I have notes on my little Mac laptop that I also sleep next to, and I have a tab on it that are like, I think it says future drawings, and I'll just like type something random. Like the last one I had was draw someone's face in the same position, but then slightly moving left and slightly moving right and around, and have the caption just breathe under it. For whatever reason, that I couldn't go to bed unless if I wrote that down, and eventually I'll draw that. So yeah, I know exactly how that feels.
The problem that I've had for like the past week and a half, 2 weeks was my sleep schedule is completely out of whack. Like wake up at 5 o'clock in the afternoon and then just try to power through it. And it's because in the middle of the night, for some reason, I'll be sitting there and I'm trying to fall asleep. I'm laying in bed. I'm staring at my ceiling, and I'll be like, I need to draw right now. And so my brain just goes through a bunch of stuff, and it's just thought after thought after thought, and then I have to I just get up and I just have to draw, and it's nice, but at the same time, it's like just completely thrown off my schedule. I need to invest in some ZQL.
Oh yeah, that stuff works.
Eric asks, do you have a journal?
My sketchbook is my journal.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's what I use mine for. Jensen asks, do you find yourself struggling to keep your friendships with your non-art friends on this art journey? Have you managed to juggle friendships with all your non-art friends, or do you find yourself slowly being engulfed in the world of art to both you and I?
Oh god, this is getting personal. I think if you asked my friends that aren't art friends, they would say I've dropped the ball. I think some of them I have stayed in touch with minimally, but it goes back to something that even Joe mentioned to me recently too, is the friends that I don't talk to as much that aren't art related. Whenever I see them again or I meet them for lunch or something in person, it's like no time ever passed. We get like we're best friends, like right there, right again. And it seems like we don't need to be constantly talking every day because our day-to-day stuff is so different that we wouldn't be able to relate to each other unless we kept bringing up like old memories or like forcing our interests to be similar when it really isn't. So I think the friends that I've kept that aren't art related are the ones that understand why we don't stay in touch as much anymore. And I respect them as well, where some of them, they are really into sports. Well, I'm not really into sports. So it'd be really tough for me to try to feign interest in baseball or golf or something that I really do not have interest in just to keep a conversation with them. I would rather them have a specific set of friends that are really into baseball and basketball or whatever it might be that they can have genuine conversations with. And then whenever we get together, then we can talk about things that we are interested in, on like things that are like not so interest based, but more personal based. Like, how's your mom doing? Are you still seeing that girl? Like, is marriage a possibility? Like, things that are more normal talk where it's not so focused on your interests. So yeah, I think every person will go or at least I don't know how it is for other professions, but as an artist, I think I have noticed that I went through this transition period where I did kind of have to filter out some of my friends, not because I didn't like them, but just because I was meeting so many new friends and I wanted to hang out with everyone. And you kind of learn that you just can't. You can't be friends with everyone. You can be polite and you can be respectful to everyone, but you can't talk to every single person every day. And that's a sacrifice that you make, but it's not in bad blood. It is literally just out of respect for what you do and what they do, and having an understanding between both of you that it would be better if you just met every now and then you could talk about important things or catch up on past memories. So yeah, I think that is definitely a more deep question, but I do believe in it. And I think I need you guys to know that it's okay. It's not like you're being mean. You're not being this elitist. You are being genuine about the way you interact with people and the people that you want close to you, the people that you want in your life.
I agree with a lot what Tim's saying, and I think especially as I get older, and it's like you start to realize um, it's a really adult thing when you hit that age where you don't need to be. I think it also doesn't help that within our day and age with instant communication always being there. It's like people would get mad if you didn't respond right away or if you weren't in constant communication with that person. And it's something that I've started humbling myself with, where it's like it's okay if someone doesn't talk to you right away. It's okay. You know, people are busy. People have their own lives. And I think it's a bit selfish for you to be like, hey, pay attention to me. At the same time, yeah, you shouldn't go for forever and never talk to that person ever again because they didn't talk to you. But like, for example, one of my friends that I play Dark Souls with, he's, trying to buy a house right now. And I'll message him every like couple days, and I'll be like, hey, you want to play Dark Souls? And he's like, no, man, I'm busy. And I'm like, all right, cool, maybe in a couple days. And we have that mutual understanding where it's like he'll message me and he'll be like, do you want to play? And it's like, no, I gotta work, and he gets it. He doesn't ever sit there and go, oh, well, you're not making time for me and this friendship is terrible. It's like, no, we both get it. We're both adults. And it was just like I didn't know about this until this year, where I started working a lot, like a lot. And it's art friends is, I would say, is very, it's nice. And I love being surrounded by my art friends, and it's very inspirational and everything. But even now and then, it's like sometimes you just don't want to be around people either, you know.
Yeah.
The do you have you managed to juggle friendships with all your non-art friends? I'd say yeah. You know, it, it helps that a lot of my close friends I live with now. But a lot of friends from college and friends from a little bit after college, I still talk to them. You know, like I said earlier, with the internet and communication, it's pretty easy to get a hold of people if you need to, and you just have to be patient and not expect them to respond right away. You know.
Oops.
Issa wants to know: do you have a name for this character here, or some other information which came by drawing through your mind?
Uh, no, admittedly, I was going to go into this thinking his name would be Jack. Uh, I feel like playing on bunny names it's pretty easy, but I feel like it fits. So like I think Peter or Jack. or anything along those lines. A Buster. Do I have
Oh
any?
man, I would just thought like like the guy who's like the big dude of the group. His name would be Buster, and he would have like buck teeth, but one of the teeth would be like chipped out because he got punched in the mouth.
Oh yeah. So I guess this one will just be Jack. If this was a girl bunny, though, I would definitely name her Lola. I think my tribute to Space Jam holds strong.
What about Cotton?
I was thinking about like Cottontail.
Yeah, Cotton's actually kind of a cool name. Like it's a weird name because it sounds very uh fluffy, but at the same time like just a dude's name, just being Cotton. You know, like what's up, Cotton? Jet says you got my vote for a paint tool size stream, please. We'll try to make that happen.
Yes.
Alejandro asks, sorry if it's been asked before, but I just got home, so I'm late to the stream. But what is the contest about?
So essentially, I'm looking for a rebel punk member of a rabbit masked gang. You will be asked to create a character that has, we had 4 things that we were looking for. One is that they have a bunny mask and it's obvious to the gang that they are representing. 2, they have more of a punk, gritty style. 3, that they have a baseball bat as their weapon. And then 4 will be something that we think about tomorrow when we post it. It'll probably be either something that they're holding, they're wearing, a tattoo, something that we just want to see included. Because sometimes when you're a concept artist, you'll be given a laundry list of things that you want for this character that has already been talked about between the art director and the people creating the general consensus of what they want to see. And then it's your job as the concept artist to interpret it and to include it. And sometimes you may not like exactly what you're given, but your job isn't to like or dislike what you're working on. Your job is to create the best version of whatever your assignment is that you possibly can. So we'll probably include something that is more specific to the character, whether it is a tattoo or a necklace or something that they have, but it's going to be something that every person should include in hopefully a creative way.
I'm seeing a couple people say that they're really digging this topic and they like that it's very specific.
I honestly, this is more of like I love the aesthetic of like Mad Max or the Warriors, or it has this very gritty but real and kind of dangerous feel to it. I love that aesthetic. So admittedly, this contest I think was a chunk of my own heart that I wanted to see, but I'm really curious to see how the community does this and if they're just as kind of fascinated by this the theme as much as I am. Oh, you know what? I'm gonna put. We have a bat that I used as my reference earlier, and I just realized the bat says Boomer, and I want to include that. I like that. Oh, we're way over time. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I really fast. Jamie says, Tim, I read somewhere that pomegranate makes kale drinks taste better.
Makes what? Kale drinks?
Yeah.
Well, thank you. I'm gonna have to try adding pomegranate to my kale drinks.
I'm not gonna lie, I want to draw a logo for this for just like a sticker that one of them would wear. Ugh. I have so many cool like just ideas that like popped in my head of just like what they would look like.
I really hope the community has fun with this contest because I am like super curious to see the entries. All right. Well, I guess I'll write Boomer another day. We'll just say Bo for now. All right. So this is what I have so far. I'll probably do some more cleanup. The arm is way too far to the well, it's not terribly far to the right, but there's definitely some proportion issue going on. Yeah, you can definitely see it there. So I'll probably have to fix a few things up, but then tomorrow we will have the contest posted, and it'll have all the details laid out, how to enter, how to, or what are the 4 things that we want included with the character. And admittedly, using a Cintiq, I can already just tell I'm kind of in love with it. I didn't know if I would be as into using a Cintiq because I'm so comfortable with my little tablet, but the screen ratio, as you can see, I have a very small tablet. I've been drawing on this, and my monitor, the one that I'm looking at right now, I think this is a 27-inch. So the ratio is so non-proportionate, so that when I'm drawing, like if I draw a little circle on here, it'll be like a dime-sized circle. It would be like this on the monitor. So I've learned to draw smaller with the tablet, and I have to kind of go back into being like, no, I can draw exactly the size that I want to work at. And even with this sketch that I just did, I can just tell I'm gonna fall in love with this Cintiq, and I can't wait to do more big paintings with it. So yeah, that is our live stream for today. Thank you all for coming, and look for the contest tomorrow. And I just checked the workshop site. There's only 2 spots left, not 3. So if this is something you really want to be included in, I would sign up right away. And that starts on Sunday. And I do have a Cintiq unboxing and how to put on the screen protector video coming. It's just taking me a little bit because I'm also working on, and actually I can show you guys. I'll give you a little sneak peek. Let me open it over here. I'm doing a big fur exercise that is going out probably in 2 weeks. And the exercise is to, I don't know, you guys probably won't be able to see this very well. But the idea is how to draw a fur in like a step-by-step. And how to add color really easily to your black and white images. So this is something I'm like 80% done on, and I'm looking forward to posting that. And for those of you who like to draw fur, I don't know how you do it. It is time consuming, and it is a process. And I've only feel like I've just got into a comfortableness with drawing fur, but it is, I mean, I think some of my stuff is time consuming, but man, fur is like another level. So kudos to you guys. All right. Thank you so much for coming to this. And any last words, Joe?
Yeah. You. Yeah, you. Over there. Get out of here. Go. Leave.
You talking to Air Bud?
All right, bye, guys.